Hello there, you're watching the press preview. A first look then at what is on the front pages. Time to see what's making the headlines with the columnist and broadcaster Carole Malone and the political editor of the Liverpool Echo, Liam Thorp. Welcome to both of you. So let's start with the front pages. The Metro welcomes the news of Cousins' imprisonment, declaring take him down and never let him out. The Telegraph quotes Metropolitan Police Commissioner Dame Cressida Dick saying a precious bond of trust has been damaged. The Eye carries calls for Dame Cressida's resignation. The Mirror also looks at calls for her to quit, their headline, Never Again. The Guardian also pictures Dame Cressida but focuses on Cousins' life sentence with a front that reads, shaming of the Met, killer officer given full life term. And the Northern Echo presents images of each of the 80 women allegedly killed at the hands of a man since Sarah was murdered in March. The paper asks, when will this end? Well, Carole Malone and Liam Thorp are here. Not surprising that this case, Carole, is dominating the Metro on the fact of the sentencing, that whole life term. Your reflections on the sentencing today?
You know, this is the most severe sentence ever handed down to a serving police officer, and it is the Met Police's greatest shame. And it's interesting that you have Cressida Dick out there apologising today, saying, I'm sorry, and committing herself to women's safety, when it was on her watch that this terrible murder happened. There are so many questions she has to answer. In fact, I don't think she should actually be allowed to answer any of them, because we know what happened. There's been a catalogue of catastrophes on this woman's watch. We know what the word John Paul Jimenez says, Operation Midland. You know, and this is her greatest shame. And she can't just stand out there and say, I'm sorry. That is not good enough for the parents of Sarah Everard. You know, I was watching that family, and I watched them all through the court case. The courage it's taken them to do what they have done, the courage it took for them to face down this man in court and to say to him, look at me, look at us, so you can see what you've done. I'm in awe of those people, and their lives are ruined. But someone has to take responsibility for what happened, and it should be Cressida Dick. And if she clings on after this, it will be to her eternal shame. Every newspaper is calling for her to resign for very, very good reasons.
Well, Tom Windsor, Chief Inspector of Constabulary, is not. He says she is behaving with distinction in her role as Chief Constable of the Met, that she is not culpable for these crimes. Are you surprised then, Liam, that politicians like Harriet Harman, notably, for example, has so firmly nailed her colours to the mast on this story?
No, I'm not surprised to see that. We've seen cross-party calls from Harriet Harman, from Caroline Noakes, from other extremely influential politicians. What we haven't seen action from is Priti Patel, obviously, who has stood by and only recently rewarded Cressida Dick with a new 2-year contract. As Carole says, this isn't the first time there have been calls for her to resign. It isn't the first time in the last few months that they've been called. We saw obviously strong calls around the handling of the vigil that was held after Sarah Everard's death. We've also seen calls because of the handling of the Daniel Morgan murder case, where the Met was described as institutionally corrupt. You know, the book has to stop at the top. And if people are going to see the change that they need to see, which they desperately need to see within the Metropolitan Police Force, how can it be led by the person that has been found so wanting leading on these issues? I think her position is completely untenable, and it's remarkable that the Home Secretary is standing by her. How can people have faith in the police force when she remains in post?
The problem is, Carole, I'll just ask you one question about that before you continue. The problem with focusing on just one person and focusing on somebody's resignation is you forget all the other things that could be improved. They talk about vetting and re-vetting when you move forces, for example, is one of the things that has come up in the Wayne Couzens case. So if you just go, oh, somebody needs to resign, you don't go in depth about all the things that might actually make improvements, so somebody like Wayne Couzens could have been identified earlier.
Cressida Dick had her chance to change the Met Police after the VIP child abuse scandal. She didn't change it then. But I think what is incredibly important, and she pointed this out today, she said people have lost trust in the police. Most importantly, women have lost trust in the police at a time when the Met Police Force is being run by a woman. That cannot be the case. She says she's committing herself to women's safety. She hasn't. We see the evidence of this. As Liam says, the reason she gets the big box is because she's at the top. She has to take responsibility. She has to be accountable for what happens in her force. And we know all the red flags that were put up about this guy Cousins. How did he get through the vetting process at the Met Police when he was called Mr. Rapist in another police force, and yet he was put in a position where he was put at the very heart of the establishment with a gun to try to protect parliamentarians? It is lunacy. For that alone, she should be sacked.
The Guardian, shaming of the Met, killer officer given a full life term, picturing there, obviously, Dame Cressida. A great long statement, written statement issued by the Metropolitan Police tonight, issuing some of the things that they have changed and the things they want to do. For example, they've established a specialist predatory offender unit, which was done last November before Sarah Everard was murdered. And that has so far arrested more than 2,000 suspects for domestic abuse, sex offences and for child abuse. The Met growing, deploying 650 new officers. They'll go to busy public places where women and girls feel more vulnerable. They'll take more seriously indecent exposure, which was one of the other elements that could be pointed at Wayne Couzens. Perhaps she is changing things. And if a woman can't do it, Liam, why should she not be given the opportunity to try?
I think, as Carole says, she's had numerous opportunities before. And I think it's about trust. She said today, that a sacred bond of trust has been broken. And I think that bond has been broken with her at the helm. And I think for people, and as Carole said, particularly women, to recover that trust in the police, she has to go. And it has to be a new broom, a new leader who brings in these changes. Sweeping changes, a total inquiry needs to be held. And she cannot be at the helm when this happens. You're right in what you say, Anna, that we shouldn't focus entirely on one person because there are systemic failings here, but it is symbolic and it needs to be led by somebody else.
Why was he free has obviously been the question for many because of these indecent exposure claims, the nickname of the rapist, the knowledge perhaps about his interest in extreme pornography. But these are also systemic societal issues, are they not? You cannot focus on the fact that he happened to be a police officer, which makes the crime doubly bad, obviously. Go on.
These were things that were known by his colleagues. It's interesting, there's a lady tonight, a former, I think she's a chief superintendent, a lady called Pam Sadhu. She says that when she was at the Met, women were too scared to report men for any kind of abuse because, she said, basically, the force is misogynistic. And she said she reported something that had happened to her and she was vilified for it. And she too was saying Cressida Dick must go, because all of these things have been happening on her watch.
Yes, and she said that one day she'll know she'll have to call on some of those men that she might have reported on, and that was the danger. Colleague protection is certainly something that Sir Tom Windsor talked about today, about the difficulty of highlighting actions that need to be raised in something like the police force. Is it old-fashioned? What's the underlying issues here, Liam, do you think?
But that's what a few of these former officers, including Palm Sandy, have said: a kind of boys' club where people close ranks, and it's been very hard for people to report issues. I think there is a cultural issue clearly within the Met, and that's why, again, just to repeat what I said earlier, to deal with these cultural issues, you kind of have to deal with this from the top down, and Cressida Dick has presided over these issues, so you have to start there. But you're right, a much more wide-ranging issue is needed. I mean, I think obviously we're all extremely shocked by this case, and it's incredibly chilling hearing those details about how he used his position as a police officer. We've seen some officers today sort of rather bizarrely saying they don't see him as a police officer. Well, the fact is he is, and he certainly was when he abducted Sarah Everard. He was a police officer and he used his power and his position, and that's one of the most chilling aspects of this, and why ultimately massive change within the force needs to happen.
Well, in this great long statement from the Met, they even advise people to ask searching questions of officers when they're arrested. Where are your colleagues? Where have you come from? Why are you here? Exactly why are you stopping or talking to me? Try to seek some independent verification of what they say. I mean, it's going to be complicated arresting people if everyone sticks to this list of questions, certainly. The Mirror asking never again. Again, repeating some of the points you're both making, demands for an overhaul of justice system and policing to protect women. Urgent action is vital to make the streets safe, which takes us to the Northern Echo as well. When will this end? The 80 women who have allegedly been killed at the hands of men since the tragic murder of Sarah Everard 6 months ago, which takes me back to that societal issue and raised by things like everyone's invited, the students being asked to tell of their tales. What does need to change more broadly in terms of access to pornography or social media, attitudes to women, you know, things people watch or see or talk about, Carole? I mean, we've talked about this for years, haven't we?
Yeah, we have. And, you know, the Echo front page where it says, you know, 80 women killed by men. Women are mostly killed by men. And this is nothing new. But what is new in this particular murder is that it was committed by someone who was in a position of trust. You know, I was reading the details of how he got her into that car. And I don't think even, you know, I don't see that another young woman on another night somewhere, if she is approached by a police officer, wouldn't get into a police car. Because how do you say no to someone in the uniform, to someone who's got a truncheon in his pocket, to someone who can hurt you, who was an officer of the law? You know, we can't presume that every police officer is a rapist, but, you know, are we going to have to do that from now on? And I think that is the problem. You know, this institution, the police force, and the reason he has been sent down for the rest of his life is that we're supposed to be able to have absolute trust in the police. And that has been broken with this in the most catastrophic way. And I don't think any changes Cressida Dick can make is going to change that anytime soon. And none of this is, you know, whatever Cressida Dick says today or tomorrow or next week, it's not going to help the family of Sarah Everard. You know, they can't unhear what they heard in court. They can't unsee the evidence that they saw. They can never forget the brutality. You know, Cousins took more than Sarah's life that day. He took that entire family's. You know, they will carry on living. They will put one foot in front of the other every day. But that's not living. Their lives will never be the same. And this man is responsible for that. This man who's in a position of responsibility. And it's shameful, and that's why Cressida Dick should resign.
Yes, they can't unimagine her final hours, which is you know, the torture of living with a case like this, isn't it? In terms of men's attitude to all of this, do men look to themselves? We've had high-profile cases, you know, celebrities, the R. Kelly case, Harvey Weinstein that started the whole business of how men behave, specifically men in power, I guess, as well. Do men or will men stop and think a bit more about it? Do you think, Liam, is that the change? Will that change come?
I think that absolutely has to happen. I think, I mean, obviously you point out the Northern Echo front page, which was extremely powerful front page. You know, the Sarah Everard case has shocked us all deeply, and there are particularly shocking elements regarding the fact that that he was, of course, a police officer. But, you know, as the Northern Echo point out, 80 women allegedly killed in the time since Sarah Everard was killed. We've had the shocking cases of Sabina Nessa. Of course, there's a charge now on that case. Other horrendous cases like the Bibba and Nicole, the sisters in London. You know, this is a terrible time for these cases, and I think people need to look towards themselves. We've seen people in positions of power. You mentioned R. Kelly, Harvey Weinstein, but as Carole says, it's the particularly chilling aspect again about this case is that he was a police officer. We have this kind of, you know, this innate sense of trust when somebody in a uniform comes near us. We think, oh well, they're in it for the right reasons, and I think it will have shaken that trust in so many people. It's a horrific case, and just to echo what Carole says, I think that the family of Sarah Everard have acted with such dignity throughout this process under the most trying circumstances, and the dignified thing for Cressida Dick would be to leave her role and allow someone else to come and try and start to restore that trust in the police.
Okay, well, you both come from the same playbook there, don't you, on that subject, certainly. Lots more still to come. Liam, Carole, for the moment, thank you. Next, though, how much blame should the government take for the fuel crisis? We'll discuss that in just a moment.
police have just made their first move and they've gone in firing tear gas.
We aim to be the best and most trusted place for news. There are hundreds of these turbines, there are thousands more across Gansu. That's what's left of the North Tunnel, where the North Koreans exploded 5 nuclear warheads. And this is a show of strength at a time when China is more fragile than it has been at any time in recent years. Shrapnel from that explosion, so you can see it littered along all the way. We take you to the heart of the stories that shape our world. The train station and the airport, they're both closed. We're not sure about the roads. We've seen reports that they are being blocked by police, so we're going to try and find a way out of Wuhan. After 5 days stranded here, this is deliverance. We help you understand the world with us. Tom Cheshire, Sky News, Beijing.
Cercando as áreas, limpando as áreas e progressivamente avançando com os plantios. Isso daqui é uma sentença de morte para os manguezais.
Well, welcome back. You're watching the press preview with me now, Carole Malone and Liam Thorp. Welcome back to both of you. Front page of The Telegraph, pointing out that we're being told this fuel crisis is over, despite the fact that we know that many places still don't have fuel and the queues are still big, Liam. Called gaslighting, apparently, in this article?
Yes, I mean, I'm always a fan of a pun, and I don't know if they meant it like that, but yeah, gaslighting. I think, you know, the government, this government particularly, we are used to them telling us things and us having to sort of double back and think, is that true? But we don't even need to in this case, because we can see it right in front of us. The queues continue. There are, I think the Telegraph says there were 27% of petrol stations were out of fuel yesterday, and yet we've got ministers, whether it's Kwasi Kwarteng, Grant Shapps or Boris Johnson, telling us that things are stabilising. Well, people aren't just going to believe what they say. They can go out and try and buy fuel themselves. They can look on the forecourts and listen, more importantly, to industry leaders who are saying that there's still a big crisis here. You know, generally, if things are stabilising, you don't call on the army to come and drive trucks. So I think it is a bit of gaslighting. It's obviously trying to manage the message and desperately trying to not look weak at a time when the country is in complete and utter chaos. So I'm not surprised to see the government telling mistruths on this, and I think industry leaders are pretty angry about it as well, as you can see in that story.
Yeah, they said around 50% had petrol and diesel at some point today, didn't they? But I think it's geographically, it's not evenly spread is part of the problem, isn't it? In the meantime, though, Dominic Raab, new in his role, obviously. The headline he ends up with today, pay offenders to drive HGVs in a fuel crisis, suggests Raab, which is not great on the Wayne Couzens day, is it, Carole?
I mean, I just think it's the most ludicrous suggestion. It makes it sound like driving an HGV is an easy job. I would think every HGV driver in the country would be furious at the suggestion that an offender can just jump into the cabin and off he goes. It's a highly skilled job. You need training. You need to be good at it. You've seen how these guys drive, the little kind of little holes and alleyways they back into with these huge trucks. It's not an easy thing. And I'm not entirely sure offenders should be in charge of a 10-ton truck. I don't think that should be the case. But, you know, read the supplies. It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, you're talking about the government gaslighting. I think there is trickery in there, but I think they're trying to say that it's under control because they hope that will kid the public into believing it is, and therefore not panic buy. Because it was a week ago when we were told there'd been a leak by the former haulage boss saying there was going to be these shortages, and everybody ran out and started to buy petrol. You know, we have the same amount of HGV drivers today as we had a week and a half ago, and there was no petrol problem a week and a half ago, and there still is no petrol shortage. It's a confected crisis caused by all of us, without exception, running out to try and fill our tanks because we're scared we're not going to be able to go anywhere, do our jobs.
Carole, we're running out of time. I do apologise. And just to repeat, the Dominic Raab story is community sentences for those people he suggested. But the end justifies the means, I suppose, in terms of trying to calm us down, according to the government. Carole Malone, Liam Thorp, lovely to see you. We'll see you soon. Thank you very much indeed.